Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be checking out some excerpts from Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, yeah. I love that book.
So this deep dive, it's all about figuring out, like, what are the secrets of this house, right? Getting to know the people who live there, and maybe even why some people are just drawn to a place like Hill House.
Yeah, it's interesting how the house itself, it's almost like one of the characters. Like, it's got this personality that's just unsettling.
Absolutely.
It's not just the setting for the story, right?
Yeah.
It's actually, like, shaping what happens and how the characters experience things.
Yeah, the way she describes the architecture, it's so creepy. It's like angles that are just a little bit off reams that have weird dimensions, and then there are all these doors that slam shut by themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the house is trying to make you feel uneasy on purpose.
It's like she took what we think of as a haunted house, you know?
Yeah.
And made it even creepier by giving it this, like, architectural evil. It's not just that bad stuff happens there. It's like the house itself is the source of the bad stuff.
Right, and then there's all those rumors from the town, right?
Oh, yeah.
Stories about people running away terrified,
Yeah.
all the strange accidents that keep happening on the property.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, are those stories just folklore? Or is it a sign of something much darker? Like something that's just part of the house itself?
That's a great question. It connects to this whole idea that some houses are just, like, born bad. The doctor in the story, actually, he talks about this theory.
Right.
Do you think there's something to that? Like, can a house, an actual building, be evil all by itself?
That's a really scary thought. It's like walking into a place that's already stained with something bad.
Yeah.
It makes me think about all the real-life places people say are haunted. Are they just places where bad things happened, or is there something about the location itself that just attracts or even creates all this negativity? What do you think?
There's this theory in psychology called projection, where we tend to put our own inner struggles onto the things around us.
Right.
Maybe these so-called bad houses, they're just canvases for all our fears, you know? Like, they become this dumping ground for all the darkness we're projecting onto them.
So we have this creepy house
Yeah.
with this unsettling history and all these weird things going on. And then you have these people who actually want to go inside. Dr. Montague, he's fascinating to me. He's this academic who's obsessed with the supernatural.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's putting himself and his guests in danger on purpose,
Yeah.
just to see what'll happen.
He's definitely playing with fire.
Yeah,
And the way he picks his guests is interesting, too.
yeah,
He specifically chooses people who've dealt with paranormal stuff before.
right.
It's like he's putting together this team of, like, Ghostbusters, you know,
Yeah.
to see if they can make the house do more stuff.
Right, and they're all such a diverse group of people.
Yeah.
Like he wanted to see how different personalities would react to the house's influence. We've got Eleanor Vance. She seems so vulnerable and fragile.
Yeah.
And then you add her childhood experience with poltergeists. I mean, imagine stones falling from the sky onto your house.
Right.
No wonder she's drawn to Hill House. It's like she's looking for an explanation, to feel like she belongs somewhere.
And that need to belong, it really comes through in the story. It's
Yeah.
almost like she's looking for a home, both literally and figuratively. And Hill House, in a weird way, even though it's so dark,
Yeah.
it seems to offer her some sort of acceptance.
Then there's Theodora, who's so bright and independent.
Oh, yeah, she's cool.
She's got a little bit of the supernatural in her, too, with her telepathic abilities.
Hmm.
Do you think being skeptical makes her more or less vulnerable to what the house can do?
That's a good question. I think her being skeptical might protect her at first, but it could also make her more vulnerable
Right.
if those defenses crumble. And then we have Luke Sanderson, Hill House owner's nephew. He brings some humor to the group. He's charming, almost reckless,
Yeah.
with this curiosity about everything.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't fully get how dangerous it is.
Yeah, exactly.
He's treating the whole thing like an adventure.
That contrast between his lightheartedness and the growing feeling that something bad is going to happen,
Yeah.
it really makes the tension higher. Oh, speaking of tension, how about the Dudleys, the caretakers?
Oh, right. I almost forgot about them. They won't even stay at Hill House after dark.
No,
Why are they so scared of it?
they must have seen and heard things that totally freaked them out.
Right.
They're like the locals who know what's really going on. They're like,
yeah.
hey, be careful.
Mhm.
There's danger here that you might not even understand.
And then there's that night when Eleanor and Theodora have that scary experience in their rooms.
Oh, yeah.
The knocking on the doors, the
Yeah.
freezing cold. It's like the house is trying to talk to them. Or maybe even threaten them.
The doctor tries to explain it rationally.
Yeah.
But even he seems a little shaken up by how scary it all was. What stood out to you the most about that scene?
The cold. It's not just that it's physically cold. It's described as this evil presence. Like the cold itself is bad. Do you think that's just like a literary technique? Or could a place actually hold that kind of negative energy?
That's a scary thought. It speaks to that primal fear we have of the unknown, of forces we just can't understand.
Yeah.
The cold spot. It's like a symbol of the house's power. To touch us, to invade our space and really shake us up.
And going through that together, it brings the guests closer, doesn't it? They start to see patterns, notice things they might have ignored before.
It's like their senses are heightened. They're more aware of things because of the shared fear. They're starting to see the house for what it really is, or at least for what they believe it to be.
And that's when we start to learn about the house's tragic past. The story of Hugh Crane, the original owner, who tried so hard to create a family that would last forever but failed.
Yeah. Hill House becomes this symbol of dreams that never came true. And the weight of the past that just hangs over everything.
Right.
It's like the house is haunted by the ghosts of the people who lived there before, their failures and their sadness.
And then there are the Crane daughters. The older one dies mysteriously, and the younger one accuses the companion of stealing and even murder.
Oh, wow.
This companion gets so paranoid she ends up taking her own life. It's all so tragic.
It's like the house feeds on these negative emotions. Fear, paranoia, despair.
Right.
It makes them stronger, twists them until they just become too much to bear.
What I find really disturbing is that scrapbook Hugh Crane made for his daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Full of these creepy pictures of hell and damnation. He even signed his name in blood. What do you think that tells us about him? And about his connection to Hill House?
The scrapbook, it's like a look inside Crane's mind.
Yeah.
It shows his obsession with sin and punishment. Makes you wonder if he saw Hill House as a kind of hell on earth, a place where all those ideas would play out for real in a terrifying way.
That's a really interesting thought, and it brings up a bigger question. Is Hill House evil on its own? Or is it just reflecting the darkness that's inside all of us?
That's a question we'll be wrestling with throughout this deep dive.
And right when things couldn't get any creepier, we're introduced to Mrs. Montague, the doctor's wife. Talk about a controlling personality.
Oh, yeah.
She's so sure that there are these foreign elements at work in Hill House that she totally dismisses her husband's scientific approach.
Right.
And decides to have a planchette session to talk to the spirits.
Her coming into the story adds a whole new layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Her strong belief in the supernatural, it clashes with the doctor's skepticism.
Right.
You get this fascinating tension between faith and reason.
Yeah.
It's like she represents the irrational part of us, the part that wants to believe in things we can't explain.
It's like she's trying to stir things up on purpose. To provoke the house?
Maybe.
Do you think that's what leads to all the paranormal activity that happens next?
It's definitely possible. And that's exactly what we'll be looking at in part 2 of our deep dive.